Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, episode 292. Greta, you ready to get back
Hey.
into the action?
I'm ready. I'm
You
ready.
you
I
are
wish
Gretty, as we decided, as we
as
figured
you
out. Yeah.
you decided. Yeah, I wish I could say I'm rested and ready, but I'm actually only ready.
All right.
So it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just a busy time of year.
We both sound bad. We both have
I
like
know.
hoarse
I didn't
voices.
even notice it with you, but while you were yelling,
Yeah.
I've not been yelling. I just have, I don't know. I'm a nurse, so who knows what I
Mhm.
have. But yeah,
I
you don't sound great.
to be clear, I was inspiring young athletes.
Oh, right.
Mhm. That's what I was doing.
Inspiring young athletes. That's code for yelling at middle school boys.
Yeah. Well, if anybody needs it, it's middle school boys. Let's face it.
That is true.
In this episode, we will be discussing chapter 13 of the Silmarillion of the Return of the Noldor.
It's a great chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So exciting.
Before we get started, we'd like to give a double up air five to our patrons. Get them hands up.
Do it.
3, 2, 1. Special thanks to this episode's executive producers, John R., Kaitlyn of Tea with Tolkien, and Jacob Lockham.
Thanks, guys.
Become a patron by visiting patreon.com/TolkienRoad. Doing so gets you cool perks like 20% off of everything at truemythspress.com. Plus, your financial support helps the Tolkien Road to keep on evering on. Learn more at patreon.com/TolkienRoad. And on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that like button, hit that like button. All right. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what's on your mind in the comments below. So before we dive in, sorry we're a little late on this episode. Just been a busy, we're busy right now. Just a lot going on, and we of course didn't get to the live stream in April. We're gonna make up for that with an extra awesome live stream next time we do a live stream, which hopefully will be this month. And then we, our oldest child graduated from high school this past weekend. So in the weekend is around the weekends when we normally are doing our recording thing, and like I was saying, doing a lot of inspiring young athletes at this time as well. So anyway, just got a lot going on. So
yes.
Yeah. So that's why we are late, but here we go. Let's do this without further ado. Shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Quote of the week from Silmarillion chapter 13. His prayer was answered swiftly. For Manwë, to whom all birds are dear, and to whom they bring news upon Taniquetil from Middle-earth, had sent forth the race of eagles, commanding them to dwell in the crags of the north, and to keep watch upon Morgoth. For Manwë still had pity for the exiled elves. So we see a couple of times in this chapter. I just like this one. We see a couple of times in this chapter that the Valar have not utterly forsaken the Noldor, right, and the elves of Middle-earth. They still have a heart for them. They still, I would say, they still even love them, right? And despite the banishment that they've imposed upon them, they are going to help them. So Manwë does it at one point, and then Ulmo does it at another point, helps them. And of course, the very fact that the sun and the moon exist in the sky are proof of that, right? Proof of the Valar, to some degree. Of course, that wasn't the only reason for creating the moon and the sun, but to some degree, it was also to, to help those elves. So, yes.
Yeah, go on.
All right. So, having arrived in Beleriand, Fëanor and company waste no time in confronting Morgoth. In chapter 13, we'll learn of the fate of Fëanor, the reunification of the Noldor, Thingol's reaction to the return of the Noldor, the second and third battles of Beleriand, a dragon, the first dragon, and much more. Disclaimer, as with each episode, we won't be covering every detail of this chapter, but instead doing our best to hit the high points and unpack interesting and important details. And this is another long chapter. We're going to hit the high points and have some interesting discussion along the way. Don't expect us to cover every single detail. Like, we've done a pretty good job of that in some of the shorter chapters, but this one, there's just too much. And we're trying to get this, do one episode on this particular chapter.
Do you say it's fair to say we'll be providing like a bird's eye view, maybe?
I like that. Yeah. Clever.
Thanks. You're welcome.
All right. So we are in the year of the sun 1 as we begin this chapter. Actually, I would say it even begins a little before that, because when Fëanor and company return, it's still the sun has not yet risen. So really, let's just kind of go straight to the action. So we know, just to pick up where we left off, we know that the Noldor have left Aman. They've left the Blessed Realm. They traveled north. Fëanor's smaller company of the Noldor were in the lead, and then Fingolfin and the larger company of the Noldor were kind of bringing up the rear. And Fëanor, like a big jerk, took the ships that they had stolen from the Teleri and sailed them across and was like, "See you, Fingolfin, have fun on the other side," and burn the ships. So that Fingolfin and co had to go through even further north and go through the Helcaraxe, the Hell of Ice, right? So Fingolfin and company are coming behind, by a significant amount of time. So Fëanor and company arrive back in Middle Earth, and a long journey. What do you want to do after a long journey like that, Greta? I mean, you immediately probably want to go and do battle with the greatest villain the world has ever known.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, who
what
needs
Fëanor does?
Who needs R&R? I mean, it's for the weak.
Yeah. Well, not all of us are the fiery spirit, right? Not all of us have the fiery spirit that Fëanor does. Fëanor just goes straight to Angband, and he's like, where's Morgoth? Where is Morgoth? Where are
my Silmarils?
That's right.
That's what he wants to know.
All right. Well, let's read about what happens when he goes and attempts to confront Morgoth. So, Greta, do you want me to read this? Or?
Yeah, you go ahead.
All right. For Fëanor in his wrath against the enemy would not halt, but pressed on behind the remnant of the orcs, thinking so to come at Morgoth himself. And he laughed aloud as he wielded his sword, rejoicing that he had dared the wrath of the Valar and the evils of the road, that he might see the hour of his vengeance. Nothing did he know of Angband or the great strength of defense that Morgoth had so swiftly prepared. But even had he known it, would not have deterred him, for he was fey, consumed by the flame of his own wrath. Thus it was that he drew far ahead of the van of his host. And seeing this, the servants of Morgoth turned to bay, and there issued from Angband Balrogs to aid them. There upon the confines of Dor Daedaloth, the land of Morgoth, Fëanor was surrounded with few friends about him. Long he fought on and undismayed, though he was wrapped in fire and unwounded with many wounds. But at the last he was smitten to the ground by Gothmog, lord of Balrogs, whom Ecthelion after slew in Gondolin. There he would have perished had not his sons in that moment come up with force to his aid, and the Balrogs left him and departed to Angband. So Fëanor he's not waiting for anybody. He's like going there. He's not being strategic about this at all. He's just like, I want Morgoth, right? I mean, as I'm reading this, I just got to think to myself, like, dude, you're trying to do battle with like the most powerful created being, right? I mean, I get that you're, fiery spirit and everything, but really, you think you're going to be able to pull this off just by yourself? Like, that's just crazy. It's crazy. He doesn't even get to Morgoth as a result. He has to do battle with Gothmog and gets defeated by Gothmog, the Lord of the Balrogs. So you kind of think of, the Balrog we all know from Fellowship of the Ring, and this is like the chief of all those Balrogs, right? This is even, I would dare say, even badder than that Balrog, right? Who even Gandalf had trouble handling. So,
yeah, and Gandalf's a Maiar.
Gandalf's a Maiar, right? As is this Balrog, right? The Balrogs are Maiar as well.
That's right. Yeah. No, it's pretty. Fëanor's got some guts.
Well,
his
foolhardy.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you gotta admire him, right? But the other way, you're like, that was stupid.
Yeah.
You should have waited for at least some backup.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I think maybe at least with backup, with some aid, he probably could have at least gotten to Morgoth.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been defeated by the Balrogs, but it also seems, I mean, he was being true to his own self, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is how Fëanor rolls.
Yeah.
You don't wait for no one.
That's right.
Yeah. Definitely
not. So, although it says Fëanor survived, not so much. Moving on to the next paragraph, it's like where does it say there he would have perished had not his sons at that moment come with force to his aid? All right, you're like, oh, okay, so he's gonna live.
Right.
And then it's like next paragraph, and it's like, nope, he dies.
He dies.
Right. You want to read this paragraph, Greta?
Sure. Then his sons raised up their father and bore him back towards Mithrim. But as they drew near to Ithol Sirion and were upon the upward path to the pass over the mountains, Fëanor bade them halt, for his wounds were mortal, and he knew that his hour was come. And looking out from the slopes of Ered Wethrin with his last sight, he beheld far off the peaks of Thingol, mightiest of the towers of Middle-earth, and knew with the foreknowledge of death that no power of the Noldor would ever overwhelm them. But he cursed the name of Morgoth thrice, and laid it upon his sons to hold to their oath and to avenge their father. Then he died, but he had neither burial nor tomb, for so fiery was his spirit that as it sped, his body fell to ash, and was borne away like smoke. And his likeness has never again appeared in Arda, neither has his spirit left the halls of Maedhros. Thus ended the mightiest of the Noldor, of whose deeds came both their greatest renown and their most grievous woe.
Yeah, so his death, I mean, he's literally, the fiery spirit, so fiery that his body just is consumed by his spirit leaving his body, and doesn't even survive the process for, the slow decay that we might expect. So that is the end of Fëanor. I mean, Greta, I read this and I'm just kind of like, it's kind of surprising to me when I think about this story, and that Fëanor is such an important figure, and that Tolkien kills him off fairly early, right? In the grand scheme of things, right?
I agree.
I didn't really dwell on that, the last time we discussed the Silmarillion. We did our, when we originally did it on the, the original set of episodes of this podcast. But it really is kind of surprising. I mean, you'd think that this character is is a pretty strong, powerful character, and Tolkien just, kills him off pretty much midway through. So I personally find that surprising when I really think about it, that he doesn't, carry Fëanor longer into the story. It makes me wonder, what might Fëanor have become if, he had been like really seriously wounded here, but somehow survived and had to like go recuperate for a while? Would he have just been like, right back at Morgoth, as soon as he was ready to go, like, or would he have like mellowed out to some degree, and maybe been a little more strategic about his plan, and been almost one of the operators, and these operators that we're going to learn about in Beleriand, these different kind of parties of peoples, that are, one of these leaders, of peoples that are like kind of trying to play power games, within Beleriand. I don't know. It's an interesting thought to me, but any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I agree. It is surprising that he's gone so early in the Silmarillion. But I feel like he he himself, like the character that we know of Fëanor, he has control, like a lot of control over his destiny and over his mortality. And I kind of feel like maybe he wanted to die. Like, I feel like maybe he couldn't deal with the humiliation of having been defeated by the Balrog, of not gotten what he wanted. And so maybe, and I'm not saying he committed suicide, but I feel like maybe it was like his will to pass on, that because I feel like if he didn't want to die, I don't think he would have, like, just knowing what I know of Fëanor. So I just kind of feel like it was what he felt like he deserved or wanted or something.
Yeah, interesting. He is a very interesting character. I think psychologically, you think about the fact that he's got this, kind of shadow over him of being indirectly responsible for the death of his mother, right? And that in terms of that he kind of consumed her, right, and in the birthing process, and he had to grow up with that, and then his father was everything to him, and then his father remarries, and it's like it's no longer just him and dad, it's he's got to deal with these other clowns and their mom who's not actually his mom. And then, you know, he creates these things and these beautiful objects, and everybody wants a piece of them. And he just, you know, he just doesn't think he can trust anybody. And yeah, I mean, maybe there's something to that just leads to this sort of personality that's like, I will have my way or I will have death. Right. You know, it's one or the other.
I mean, he knew what he was doing, right? Yeah. I mean, he had to know his chances were not good.
Yeah. Yeah. You'd think so. Because he's not dumb.
No, he's not. So it seems to me like maybe he was just done and he kind of wanted to go out in a, dare I say, blaze of glory.
Blaze of glory.
I mean, that's literally what he did. He went out in a blaze of glory, but not so much glory, I guess. A blaze of defeat.
Wake up in the morning.
Stop, you're gonna get us copyrighted.
Raise my weary head.
Lovely.
I had an old coat for a pillow, and the earth was last night's bed. That's the best we can do on the podcast now, because I don't think they'll.
I was gonna say you may have done too much.
Well, I don't think they'll flag us because that's not actually recording. It's just it's me singing the song, a little snippet from the song.
Okay.
Yeah, great little John Bon Jovi song from the Young Guns 2 soundtrack back in the, I think, early 90s. Anyway, all right, so so Fëanor gone, toast.
And he went out on his own terms.
Yeah.
You got to admire that.
So kind of jumping ahead a little bit, Morgoth, so Fëanor's 7 sons do survive. And so it's up to them now to fulfill the oath, right? And to kind of, you know, honor their father's dying wishes. And they get roped into this whole thing where Morgoth is like, hey, oh gosh, you guys got me. You know, I'll give you a Silmaril, right? Just come in treat of peace. I just don't want any more trouble. And they're like, oh, we know what you're up to. We're going to come with our own army, right? You know, they're not stupid, but they're a little stupid because they don't come with a bigger army. And Maedhros, the oldest of Fëanor's sons, ends up getting captured. And man, this is just horrible, but he gets hung from the face of Thingol by one arm, right? Just that's not fun.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So he's just up there, and for a while, we're not really sure exactly how long, but he is up there for a good long while. And then after that, we find out that Fingolfin's company arrives, right?
They survived.
Yes, they did.
The icy journey.
They did. And I'm sure it made them tougher, right? So as they come over, unlike when Fëanor came over and the orcs went to check it out, right? Nobody really bothers Fingolfin. So, you know, they're coming, Greta, if you look at the map, this map here, you know, they're coming from up here in the upper left-hand corner in this region, Lamoth, right, into Hithlum, and they're journeying down into this area. And this is where Angband is, way up here in the center of the map right here, top center of the map right there. And, you know, when Fëanor came down, the orcs came over to investigate, and that's how that second battle. So that's known as the Fëanor battle, is known as the second battle of Beleriand. And but with Fingolfin and company coming over, you know, nobody's showing there. So I'm gonna I don't know if I can share. I'm not gonna worry about sharing it. But anyway, look at that map in your book, of your book copy of the Silmarillion. Yeah. And you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. So when Fingolfin and company come over, the sun has risen. So Morgoth is like, no, thank you. I'm not going to even bother with these people because I'm scared of this bright object in the sky. And so Fingolfin and company basically arrive, and they don't have to deal with Morgoth. So that's nice for them. And they smote upon the gates of Angband, and the challenge of their trumpets shook the towers of Thingol. And Maedhros heard them amid his torment and cried aloud, but his voice was lost in the echoes of stone. So they move on, and we find out a little later that this Fingolfin and company do learn about Maedhros' fate, and Fingon, the son of Fingolfin, decides to go help him. So why don't we read about this, Greta?
Yeah.
I will read this first paragraph and you can read the next two.
Sounds good.
Then Fingon the Valiant, son of Fingolfin, resolved to heal the feud that divided the Noldor before their enemies should be ready for war. For the earth trembled in the Northlands with the thunder of the forges of Morgoth underground. Long before, in the bliss of Valinor, before Melkor was unchained, or lies came between them, Fingon had been close in friendship with Maedhros. And though he knew not yet that Maedhros had not forgotten him at the burning of the ships, the thought of their ancient friendship stung his heart. Therefore he dared a deed which is justly renowned among the feats of the princes of the Noldor. Alone and without the counsel of any, he set forth in search of Maedhros, and aided by the very darkness that Morgoth had made, he came unseen into the fastness of his foes. High upon the shoulders of Thangorodrim he climbed, and looked in despair upon the desolation of the land. But no passage or crevice could he find through which he might come within Morgoth's stronghold. Then, in defiance of the orcs, who cowered still in the dark vaults beneath the earth, he took his harp and sang a song of Valinor that the Noldor made of old, before strife was born among the sons of Finwë. And his voice rang in the mournful hollows that had never heard before aught save cries of fear and woe.
Thus Fingon found what he sought, for suddenly above him, far and faint, his song was taken up, and a voice answering called to him. Maedhros it was that sang amid his torment. But Fingon climbed to the foot of the precipice where his kinsman hung, and then could go no further, and he wept when he saw the cruel device of Morgoth. Maedhros, therefore, being in anguish without hope, begged Fingon to shoot him with his bow, and Fingon strung an arrow and bent his bow. And seeing no better hope, he cried to Manwë, saying, O king, to whom all birds are dear, speed now this feathered shaft and recall some pity for the Noldor in their need. His prayer was answered swiftly, for Manwë, to whom all birds are dear, and to whom they bring news upon Taniquetil from Middle-earth, had sent forth the race of eagles, commanding them to dwell in the crags of the north, and to keep watch upon Morgoth. For Manwë still had pity for the exiled elves. And the eagles brought news of much that passed in those days to the sad ears of Manwë. Now, even as Fingon bent his bow, there flew down from the high airs Thorondor, king of eagles, mightiest of all birds that have ever been, whose outstretched wings spanned 30 fathoms. And staying Fingon's hand, he took him up and bore him to the face of the rock where Maedhros hung. But Fingon could not release the hell-wrought bond upon his wrist, nor sever it, nor draw it from the stone. Again, therefore, in his pain, Maedhros begged that he would slay him, but Fingon cut off his hand above the wrist, and Thorondor bore them back to Mithrin.
Yeah, so Fingon does this, very heroic thing, and his goal really, first of all, he has a true friendship with Maedhros that he remembers, and the other thought is that he wants to heal. He feels like he needs to do something to heal the rift between the Noldor, because they need to be united in their determination to take on Morgoth, right? So he does this, very heroic deed and calls upon the aid of Manwë, and ultimately rescues Maedhros, though at the price of Maedhros' hand, right? And this won't be the only time that a major character in Silmarillion loses a hand. So anyway, in kind of the achieving a great deed, although in this case it's sort of Maedhros didn't really achieve a great deed. He just got caught, and hung from the rock. It was Fingon's great deed in this case. This very heroic deed is going to help heal that, and Maedhros actually is going to do something very generous himself as a result of this.
And it's an event that also probably served to help heal the rift between the Valar and the Noldor, right?
Well, how so?
Well, I mean, without Manwë sending the eagles, he wouldn't have
I see what
been
you're
able to. I mean, he was ready to shoot him,
Yeah.
right? Put him out of his misery. And it was his prayer to Manwë. It's interesting that he still said a prayer to Manwë,
Mm-hmm.
even, it showed that he still had faith, right? Like there was still hope for them to be reconciled. So, I mean, I think it was a good move on the part of the Valar to show the Noldor that they, they still care.
Yeah.
I mean, because it would have been impossible without the Eagles.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Well, it was very merciful considering, the attitude of the Noldor as they left, right?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they basically just like, F you guys, right? See you later. So yes, but this is going to bear important fruit as we see just in the next paragraph here, where it reads, "For Maedhros begged forgiveness for the desertion in Ahriman, and he waived his claim to kingship over all the Noldor, saying to Fingolfin, if there lay no grievance between us, Lord, still the kingship would rightly come to you, the eldest here of the house of Finwë, and not the least wise. But to this his brothers did not all in their hearts agree." So Maedhros is very grateful and basically says to Fingolfin, because of Fingon's deed, he says to Fingolfin, Fingon's father, I want you to be the High King instead of me, right? So Maedhros, you would think rightfully should have been the High King because he's the son of Fëanor, who was the first son of Finwë, the eldest son of Finwë, who was the original High King of the Noldor. So it would seem that would pass down that way, but Maedhros yields the throne to Fingolfin. So now Fingolfin is the High King of the Noldor. Of course, not all of the sons of Fëanor like that. So
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, but it is what it is. So that's who it is. That's who it be.
I think it's got to deal with it.
And not all of them deal with it so well.
Well, true.
Speaking of kings, let's check in with King Thingol. How does he feel about the Noldor being
good segue there, John? I feel like that was a very Pert Hapley kind of thing. And speaking of kings.
Yes. And now is the time on this podcast when we speak of kings. The time known as the Speaking of Kings time.
Speaking of Kings time.
Yes. On this podcast, which is ours. All right. How does Thingol feel about all of this? The Noldor being here? No, thank you. Sorry for those of you listening. You had to be watching to get the full effect of that. It was pretty epic. All right. So yeah. So Thingol is not pleased that the Noldor have come here, and this presents some more controversy. So I'll read the first paragraph here, Greta, and then you can read the second. Now, King Thingol welcomed not with a full heart the coming of so many princes in might out of the west, eager for new realms. And he would not open his kingdom, nor remove its girdle of enchantment. For wise with the wisdom of Melion, he trusted not the restraint of Morgoth would endure. Alone of the princes of the Noldor, those of Finarfin's house, were suffered to pass within the confines of Doriath. For they could claim close kinship with King Thingol himself, since their mother was Eärwen of Alqualande, Olwe's daughter.
Angrod, son of Finarfin, was the first of the exiles to come to Maedhros as messenger of his brother Finrod, and he spoke long with the king, telling him of the deeds of the Noldor in the north and of their numbers and of the ordering of their force. But being true and wise-hearted and thinking all griefs now forgiven, he spoke no word concerning the kinslaying, nor of the manner of the exile, the Noldor, and the oath of Fëanor. King Thingol hearkened to the words of Angrod. And ere he went, he said to him, "Thus shall you speak for me to those that sent you. In Hithlum the Noldor have leave to dwell, and in the highlands of Dorthonion, and in the lands east of Doriath that are empty and wild. But elsewhere there are many of my people, and I would not have them restrained of their freedom, still less ousted from their homes. Beware, therefore, how you princes of the west bear yourselves. For I am the Lord of Beleriand, and all who seek to dwell there shall hear my word. Into Doriath none shall come to abide, but only such as I call as guests, or who seek me in great need."
Yeah. So Angrod, son of Finarfin. So, as it says here, the children of Finarfin are part Teleri also, which means that they are akin to Thingol, right? Being the original king of the, or co-king, if you will, of the Teleri, right? Who of course stays behind, rest of the Teleri go, but the Sindar stay behind, and he becomes the king of the Sindar. So, Thingol's a little warmer towards Angrod being a son of Finarfin than he might be towards others. But important detail is that Angrod never mentions the kinslaying, right? Which of course probably would have made Thingol very mad. So again, because it's like, those were my people and your people, and you all killed them, right? Or you all attacked them. So
Do you think that's deceitful on his part?
Because
I feel like it gives him an excuse, right? He's like, well, I thought all griefs were now forgiven. Let bygones be bygones. And it's not going to help his case with Thingol for sure. So I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that was incumbent upon. Well, all right. So I don't know that was Angrad's job necessarily.
Yeah.
I do think I expect that he discussed it with Finrod beforehand, because Finrod was the one who sent him, right? Finrod being, I believe the eldest child of Finarfin. So of that line, let me double check that. But of that line, the oldest child, or the patriarch, perhaps. Let's see here, Finarfin. So Finarfin, yeah. Oh gosh, I hate the advertisements on this website. All right, so yes, Finrod was the oldest, and then Angrod, and then Egnor, and then Galadriel. So I really think it really was probably Fingolfin who should have made this call, right? Because Fingolfin was the one who led them all, or at least led the majority host, and now he's the High King of the Noldor, right? So to me, it's something that Fingolfin should have gone to Thingol to say, right? So yes, did it need to be addressed? Absolutely. Who was the right one to address it? Well, probably not Angrod as the guy under who's going on behalf of Finrod, and then Finrod is actually subject to Fingolfin, right? Probably not the right way to handle it, with such horrible news. So that's my take on it. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, I agree.
All right, cool, settled. Boom. Now they know. All right.
Now they know.
This leads to, there's a Council of the Noldor now, where they discuss this word from Thingol, and Maedhros and company basically laugh at this, right?
Oh wait, can we go back super quick?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if you're moving on. I feel like I don't like Thingol very much. I feel like this is maybe the first kind of I used to like him, but now I'm kind of like, this is like the first little inkling I have of maybe he's not such a good guy after all. Right? I mean, he just seems like this is not a war. Well, I'm not saying he needs to welcome them with open arms. And I feel like he's generally fair, maybe, but I think I understand him not wanting to they were there first and they're his people and he wants to look out for them first. And I get that. But this whole, I am the Lord of Beleriand, that seems like a high claim. I mean, I guess it's true, but I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way.
Well, I mean, I can understand where you're coming from. It is, I would say before they arrived, it was certainly true that he was the Lord of Beleriand, right? And you can kind of understand that he's trying to watch out for his people that are already there, right? He's trying to make sure that they aren't dispossessed of their own lands, right? And that, because that's his job, right? That's the job of a good king.
Sure.
So on one hand, I can understand it, and he needs to be a little stern. I'm kind of surprised he doesn't spend more time asking about why did you all come back, right? And why did you come through such a perilous road? And just keep asking more and more questions about what in the world brings you all back. So yeah, I mean, maybe he could have been a little more welcoming, or come off a little more welcoming, but he also, I think, probably realizes that, whatever it is that brought them back it doesn't seem like it was a particularly good thing. So he's probably trying to lay down the
he's
law a
being
little
careful.
bit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes there's a time to be sometimes there's a time to be a complete jerk. You know, like you need to kind of, you know, give off a strong appearance, right? Otherwise you're going to be taken advantage of, right?
Yeah, no, he's establishing boundaries, and I think that's a good thing. But I guess there was just something about it that just kind of made me go, I don't like that very much.
Well, I mean, I think Thingol is certainly a character that's going to, you know, he does go down a road of pride, I would say, right? And we see that we're going to see that more starkly in some later stories. But I guess I can understand why he has the attitude here that he does, right? And I think it's the right call considering what the response of the Noldor here is to it, right? You know, so let's move on to that.
What is the response of the Noldor?
Well, Maedhros laughs.
He laughs.
A king is he that can hold his own, or else his title is vain. Thingol does but grant us lands where his power does not run. Indeed, Doriath alone would be his realm this day, but for the coming of the Noldor. Therefore, in Doriath let him reign, and be glad that he has the sons of Finwë for his neighbors, not the orcs of Morgoth that we found. Elsewhere it shall go as seems good. Elsewhere it shall go as seems good to us. And then Caranthir, who's one of another son of Fëanor and is like the biggest of all the jerks, basically says doesn't like the sons of Finarfin, and was very harsh. And he says, "Yea, more, let not the sons of Finarfin run hither and thither with their tails to this dark elf in his caves, who made them our spokesman to deal with. And though they be come indeed to Beleriand, let them not so swiftly forget that their father is a lord of the Noldor, though their mother be of other kin." So he's like, don't you Finarfin people even think about, you know, trying to buddy up with old Thingol over there just because you have a relation, right? Just because, you know, your mom was of his kin. So, you know, just as we're thinking like, oh, they're going to have like, you know, this council and like bring together, it's like more division, right? Sown amongst the Noldor here. And we do learn a little bit about Caranthir and his dealings with the dwarves and the creation of the, where is it?
Now, first we learn of they build a really big thing.
Well, right? Yes, yeah. I'm kind of, you know, again, I'm not trying to cover every detail of this chapter. If you want to, if there was something that you wanted to mention, anyway, I thought I had it marked, but I don't. Anyway, but there's not a whole lot of detail about the dwarves right now. We're learning a little bit about their existence. And of course, we learned about that in a previous chapter as well. And we'll get more from the dwarves in later chapters. They'll become more significant players in the story in later chapters. All right. So we jump ahead 20 years and then Fingolfin calls, you know, a great feast for the Noldor. And it really is a time of healing. It says it was long remembered in later days of sorrow, time of joy, and for a healing of past grievances and wounds. Although, unfortunately, you know, there's actually elves other than Noldor that come to this feast as well. And the green elves of Osiriand, the gray elves, and the folk of the havens. And from Doriath, only Mablung and Daron come, right? Just two messengers. So Thingol does not come to the feast. So we can see that Thingol is setting himself up over here, which I would say that's kind of a jerk move, right? You know, everybody else is coming to the feast. Why don't you go to the feast, right? So I can see that more so as like okay, that's questionable to me, like why he wouldn't have gone when all the other elves from Beleriand are going. So
yeah, I agree. But I already thought Thingol's a jerk, so that just confirms it.
Yes, confirmed. Thingol equal jerk, confirmed. All right. Next, we have the dreams of Turgon and Finrod. So essentially, Ulmo inspires the creation of two great kingdoms through these two elves. Let's read a little bit about what happens here. Greta, why don't you read this paragraph?
And when again 30 years had passed, Turgon, son of Fingolfin, left Nevrast, where he dwelt and sought out Finrod, his friend, upon the island of Tol Sirion. And they journeyed southward along the river, being wary for a while of the northern mountains. And as they journeyed, night came upon them beyond the mares of twilight, beside the waters of Sirion, and they slept upon his banks beneath the summer stars. But Ulmo, coming up the river, laid a deep sleep upon them in heavy dreams. And the trouble of the dreams remained after they awoke, but neither said aught to the other, for their memory was not clear, and each believed that Ulmo had sent a message to him alone. But unquiet was upon them ever after, and doubt of what should befall. And they wandered often alone in untrodden lands, seeking far and wide for places of hidden strength. For it seemed to each that he was bidden to prepare for a day of evil, and to establish a retreat, lest Morgoth should burst from Angband and overthrow the armies of the north.
Yeah, so we have Turgon and Finrod. Hold on, I'm gonna turn off this AC here. There we go. So we have Turgon and Finrod. They're buddies. They go on this journey together. And while they're both sleeping, Ulmo inspires in them dreams that are kind of troubling, and it leads them separately to think that they need to establish their own realms. So just give you the spoiler on this. Turgon will be the one who eventually creates Gondolin. And as we find out right here, Finrod is the one who creates Nargothrond, right? Gondolin will come later. We learned a little bit more about Nargothrond and the creation of Nargothrond right here. And that happens just in the paragraphs that follow right here. Galadriel could have gone to live with Finrod and Nargothrond, but she chose to stay in Doriath with Celeborn, who she has apparently met now and will eventually marry if she's not already married to him. And it says Turgon remembered the city set upon a hill, Tirion the fair, with its tower and tree. So he's thinking back to Tirion upon Tuna in the Blessed Realm. And he found not what he sought, but returned to Nevrast and sat in peace in Vinyamar by the shores of the sea. And in the next year, Ulmo himself appeared to him and bade him go forth again alone into the vale of Sirion. And Turgon went forth, and by the guidance of Ulmo, he discovered the hidden vale of Tumladen in the encircling mountains, in the midst of which there was a hill of stone. Of this he spoke to none as yet, but returned once more to Nevrast, and there began in his secret councils to devise the plan of a city after the manner of Tirion upon Tuna, for which his heart yearned in exile. So yes, we'll learn much more about Gondolin in later chapters, but that is the origin of it. Ulmo and the inspiration of his dreams leads to these two elves to think about the future, right, and creating strongholds for their people in the event that Morgoth attacks again.
So yeah, they're meant to be like you said, fortresses, right?
Mhm.
Like a defensive place to protect the elves from Morgoth.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So
I think it's interesting they refer to them as retreats too.
Mhm. Yeah,
well, I mean, like a retreat, like as you retreat from battle and or retreat into a safe place in the midst of a battle, but a retreat too can be a place of healing and rest.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
It serves many purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So and then shortly hereafter, we learn that Morgoth indeed does attack again, right? So this is going to be the third battle of Beleriand, and it is later known as the Glorious Battle, Dagor Aglareb. Basically, Morgoth attacks like kind of a two-pronged attack. One attack down the western side through the Vale of Sirion, or through the Pass of Sirion, on the west side of Dorthonion, and then another huge army down the right side, and attempts to just kind of flood southern Beleriand with all of the, with orcs and armies of all kinds of horrible things. But fortunately, the vigilance of the elves was still fairly high, and so they're able to defeat these armies and to send them back all the way to Angband. But unfortunately, they're not able to actually assail Angband itself. So they're not able to get at Morgoth. Kind of push back and get at Morgoth himself. They're not that strong. They're strong enough to beat back the armies that are attacking them, but not strong enough to break into Angband. But this does set what's called the Siege of Angband, which lasted 400 years, right? Where basically they go and they create this, just big encampment of armies on Ardgallen, right? Which is the plain just south of Angband, right? So it's meant to keep Morgoth from having any ability to directly assault Beleriand. So, yeah. Any thoughts on that, Greta?
No.
All right.
Good.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Yeah. And then finally we learn about Glaurung. So he is the first dragon we learn about. Why don't you read a little bit about Glaurung here, Greta?
Again, after 100 years, Glaurung, the first of the Urlokai, the fire drakes of the north, issued from Angband's gates by night. He was yet young and scarce half grown, for long and slow is the life of the dragons, but the elves fled before him to arid Rithrim and Dorthonion in dismay. And he defiled the fields of Ardgallen. Then Fingon, prince of Hithlum, rode against him with archers on horseback and hemmed him round with a ring of swift riders, and Glaurung could not endure their darts, being not yet come to his full armory, and he fled back to Angband and came not forth again for many years. Fingon won great praise, and the Noldor rejoiced, for few foresaw the full meaning and threat of this new thing. But Morgoth was ill pleased that Glaurung had disclosed himself over soon.
Yeah. So Morgoth isn't happy that Glaurung breaks out here before he's full grown.
It's like a little puppy.
I know.
He just wants to go outside.
Just wanted to go out and play. Yeah, but unfortunately, unfortunately for Morgoth, fortunately for the free people of Beleriand, they're able to beat Glaurung and send him back to Angband, send him back to Morgoth with his tail between his legs. So I would say Fingon is a pretty heroic dude.
Yeah.
Between this and then rescuing Maedhros, single-handedly, no pun intended.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty heroic guy.
I need a high five for that one. That was awesome.
Nice. Just spontaneous. Yeah.
So good.
All right. And then after this defeat, there was the long peace of well nigh 200 years. So we got, a good period of peace that's going to happen as a result of this. Basically, just to sum it all up, Noldor return. They try to get into it with Morgoth, and they're not quite able to accomplish what they want to, but they're able to at least establish a realm of peace in southern Beleriand for a long period of time. And that's what, that's where we're going to leave this one. Yeah. And they're able to flourish now and create some civilization back here, right? Using all of the knowledge they've gained being in Valinor for, really a long period of time, right? They've all become, they're able to bring some of that skill of civilization back here and, share it with the already talented people of Beleriand, the already talented elves of Beleriand. So,
yeah, good.
Well, did I skip anything that you wanted to hit, Greta?
No, I don't think so. That was a good
overview.
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's do some haiku.
Let's do it.
All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
You go first.
Heroic deed heals. Fiery folk find haven. Ulmo inspires hope.
Oh, that's good.
Good.
I like that.
It's all right. I'm glad you liked it.
I did like it. I did. All right, here's mine. A daring rescue to heal a feud. Song saves his life, but not his hand.
Nice. I forgot to I know I have some haiku for this chapter from some listeners. Let me make sure I get over to those. I forgot to gather them before for my notes.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Slacking on the job, Carswell. It's fine. As long as you get it in.
Here we go. No, that's not for this chapter. Yeah, I thought I had it. Stand by. We're gonna find this. All right.
I feel like I'm not good at filling dead airspace.
Like you're trying to do right now.
I'm trying really hard, but I can't.
All right, here we go.
What to say? Oh, nice.
From Red Hawk.
Okay.
Chapter 13. Fingon flies to aid. Maedhros from his hand taken. Alliance remade.
I like it.
Yeah,
I think
that's
all of
the winner.
our but we were all clearly on the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the part of this chapter that I think spoke to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Was that rescue of Maedhros.
Yeah. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And yes. All right. Well, hey, if we forgot your haiku, or if you want to leave it later, just leave it in the comments below. All right. Well, I think that is everything for this episode. Hey, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes or the platform of your choice. If you're a 5-star fan of the Tolkien Road, you can really help us out by heading over to iTunes, your preferred source for the show, and dropping us a rating and review. When you do that, it helps get the word out about the Tolkien Road, which helps us to keep on evering on. All right. And don't forget to drop us a line wherever you can find us. Thank you to our amazing patrons, especially the following: John R.,
Kaitlyn of Tea with Tolkien,
Jacob Lockham,
Ms. Anonymous,
Andrew T.,
Red Hawk,
Shannon S.,
Brian O.,
Emilio P.,
Zeke F.,
James A.,
James L.,
Chris L.,
Chuck F.,
Aja V.,
Ish of the Hammer,
Teresa C.,
David of Pints with Jack,
Jonathan D.,
Eric S.,
Eric B.,
Johanna T.,
Mike M.,
Robert H.,
Paul D.,
Julia,
Werty,
Matthew W.,
Joe Bagelman,
Chris K.,
Jacob S.,
and Don J.,
as well as those celebrating their Patreon anniversary in May of 2022, Malcolm C.
and Ms. Anonymous.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all so much for watching and for listening. We will talk at you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.